Welcome everybody to SmallCap Spotlight. As the video said, Rishi Gupta from Shepherd's Hill. But before we get to SmallCap Spotlight, let me tell you a little bit about what we do at Shepherd's Hill and how we think about investing in businesses. And the reason for that is SmallCap Spotlight actually grew out of a pain point that we had, and maybe some of you have faced this issue as well. So what is our main task as business or financial analysts? Right? We want to essentially enable the efficient allocation of the savings of society towards the users of capital, which is nothing but the companies or businesses. And savings of society is nothing but savings of individuals, right? Whether it is through mutual funds, pension funds, insurance companies, things like that. And as an individual saver, what are my main objectives? I want to protect capital because this is hard-earned money and I don't want to waste or benefit of it. I want to protect against inflation because as the years go by, my purchasing power will reduce and the inflation has been around 4 or 6% in that range. Is you want to beat the low-cost equity index. Now, historically, equities in India have given us around 12% over the last many decades. And in my opinion, it is the most consistent and reliable way to achieve that level of return. Now, you can use gold, we see it run in gold, and you can use that as portfolio insurance. But at least I don't know of a consistent and reliable way to analyze an asset class that doesn't have any intrinsic earnings. So our work is cut out. We have to protect capital and we have to beat the index. How do we do that? We build a portfolio of companies. We need to select good companies and we need to select them at reasonable or cheap prices. Let's leave prices aside for today. That's a whole separate topic. Let's focus on good companies. We can do that quantitatively, we can do that qualitatively. Quantitatively, we can look at the balance sheet, we can look at debt levels, we can look at book value growth over time, we can look at capital expenses, whether companies are capital heavy or capital light. We can look at mergers and acquisitions. Has the management been disciplined and conservative about that? We can look at write-offs on line items like loans and advances. And if there's a history of that, then that needs to be looked at. And you need to look at working capital. So for a high growth company that has high working capital, you're going to need more funds. In the P&L, we look at gross margin, and we can look at fixed costs, look at the operating leverage there. We can look at interest coverage ratios along with the debt on the balance sheet. We can look at depreciation along with capex on the balance sheet. And then finally, we come to the cash flow statement, where we need to look at whether the margins and earnings in the P&L are actually going to be translated into cash. And it's not necessary that will happen. You might have a high margin business that has high working capital and high capex and translate. And then you can combine these three statements and come up with ratios like return on asset, returns on equity. So this will give us an overall view quantitatively of it. But everything is not quantifiable. In qualitative analysis, the analyst can ask simple questions like what does the company do? What is the competitive strength? What impact the product or service has with the life of a customer? What is the competitive scenario, but also what is the risk of stagnation? Maybe there's technical obsolescence that might come in. So these are all things that we have to look at. We have to look at management, whether they conduct themselves with integrity and honesty, keep all shareholders fairly. And we have to look at whether the management has created a team around it to take the company forward the next few years. One additional point we have to look at is, yes, the management might be able to run the company well, but are they good capital allocators? Because this is something that is an advanced skill, and you might have a management that runs the business well, but then is redeploying their funds into diversify to a low return segment. So, and these qualitative factors can be sometimes more important, and they can also give you context for the numbers that you have analyzed. And really, the best way to get a good grasp of these factors is to talk to the executive team or the management themselves. Right? They have lived it, they have done it their own careers, they have built these companies, they have given employment. And actually, collectively, we are responsible for taking our economy and country forward. So it's not just the analyst that should be interested in it. The general intelligent business doer or leader would love to hear from these people. And that is the problem statement, right? Because as we all know, SEBI and AMFI have categorized companies by market cap as large cap, mid cap, and small cap. Large being the top 100, mid being 101 to 250, and 251 onwards, I think BSE today has about 5,000 listed companies. They are all small. Keep in mind that number 251 is 30,000 crore market, right? So that's the problem statement, because the media coverage that we see around us on the big channels and historically, about 90% of that is on these top 250. And maybe there's a good reason for that, because 90% of the funds in the market are in those countries. But like I said, these are interesting stories as an analyst and as the general public. And that access is not there other than AGMs and maybe a few monthly calls. But otherwise, that access really isn't there. And so last year, we thought of trying to fill that gap in a little way. And we started SmallCap Spotlight with the view of giving this platform to companies, thank you companies for being here today, we appreciate you coming. And also for us, analysts, people in general, to just ask the questions and learn about these amazing stories. We do have some guidelines, so we like to hear about your story, about your philosophy, about your journey. We want to know about the challenges and opportunities that you're facing in the business. But at SmallCap Spotlight, we're not interested in stock prices, we're not interested in market movements, we're not interested in macroeconomic predictions, right? And then at Shepherd's Hill, we have a couple of rules, because we are incubating SmallCap within an asset manager. So we don't give this platform to our existing portfolio companies. And from the time that we interview the company to 30 days after we publish, we don't invest in the security. So that gives sort of a neutral, platform and builds trust. So with that, thank you for being here. Welcome to everybody. Mr. Hari Bhakti and Dr. Valpani, thank you for gracing us with your presence. All the companies, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.